My name is Eileen, and I'm from Calgary, Alberta, Canada. I have a cochlear implant, and I was implanted about 10 years ago. Though it might be annoying at times, I really loved hearing the sound of my dogs, even just whether it's the barking or the sound of their feet on the floor. Definitely couldn't hear that before, and I love hearing it now. It was my very first year of university, and I noticed when the professor would turn around, I could no longer hear what he or she was saying. And that's when I realized I was reading lips more than I was actually hearing. So, at the encouragement of my sister, who I lived with at the time, whether it was because she was worried about my actual hearing or maybe she was a little annoyed that she kept having to repeat herself, she encouraged me to get a hearing test. And that's when I found out that I did have a mild hearing loss at that time. And I got my first set of hearing aids. So I had hearing aids in both ears. However, my hearing loss progression happened pretty fast. And I noticed I was going back to my audiologist every 6, 9 months, asking them to bump up the volume on my hearing aid. When I first heard about a cochlear implant, I actually decided not to get one. I am a music teacher and a musician, and I was really, really worried about what a cochlear implant would do to my perception of music specifically. So it wasn't until my surgeon and my audiologist actually told me to check out Medell and speak to someone who had had a cochlear implant with Medell to find out what the experience of living with a CI was like, that it actually changed my decision and made me confident enough to move forward with it. With the hearing loss, I was worried about being able to keep teaching and even just my enjoyment of music. I'm happy to say I'm still teaching music today. I still go out and enjoy going to concerts, listening to music on the radio or at home, and being able to hear those things that I know if I did not get the cochlear implant, I don't think I would be able to do that today. I know living with an implant is quite different than just hearing about it or knowing the science behind it. Knowing that the person I talked to had such an impact on making me feel comfortable with going through with a cochlear implant, and knowing that my experience is quite unique, being someone who's so heavily involved in music and also lost their hearing sometime throughout their lifetime. I really wanted to give back to that community and let other people know that there is some silver lining and it's possible to get that part of your life back and to be reintegrated into the hearing world. Is to remember to be your own advocate. You're the only one that's living in your own head. Your audiologist, of course, and your Medell representatives are here to support you. But really, you're the one that's going to be living with that implant day in and day out. So they're not going to know if you are having maybe certain scenarios that you're having issues with unless you actually speak and you advocate for yourself and you let them know what you need your help with, and they can put you in connection with resources or other people that can help. Scenarios where some of the people who knew me pre-implant knew that they had to speak directly to me. They couldn't turn away, they couldn't leave the room. And I was visiting one of my friends, and she went and walked across and went into the kitchen and said something. And I was able to respond to her, and it was silent. And she came and walked into the room. She's like, "Did you hear me?" Even though I was behind the wall. And I said yes. And she's like, "You haven't been able to do that since you were a kid." So it was obvious to people around me that knew me pre and post implant that there was an improvement and there was definitely a change there. So I'm actually getting my second Medell cochlear implant later this year, which I'm really excited about. I know what type of impact one ear has had, and now that my second ear has degraded in terms of hearing capabilities to that point where I got approved for the second one, the feedback that I've heard from dual implanted people is that it's a game changer, and it allows you to be able to hear things quite a bit better. So I'm excited to kind of go through that journey again. I know it's going to be a lot of work. I'm basically starting over again and doing the rehabilitation process from scratch. But I can only imagine what um, kind of doors and opportunities will be there for me with having two implants instead of one.